November 24th, 1946. Ted Bundy is born, and I have some great birthday gifts for him if he helps me to my Volkswagen Beetle. Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And super excited to have a guest making their first appearance on the show. The very, very funny Kate Strobel, everyone.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for listening. You know, we don't say it enough. You know what? You're golden, listeners. Little,
If you're Patreon subscribers, you're golden. Everybody else? Silver at best. If you've written a review, you're silver. If you just listen and that's it, bronze. Hard bronze.
Bronze is still a valuable part of the listener ecosystem, though. We shouldn't disparage the freeloaders and the losers. Yeah. That took a weird turn. I don't know about that.
Yeah, you really tapped into your inner Trump at the end.
God damn it, I did. I didn't mean to. What do we do on this show that now that we've insulted probably the bulk of the listenership?
Yeah, well, first we get most of the people to turn off the show. And we've completed that segment of the podcast.
Check it off the list.
So after that, we examine a person or event or a place from history, and one person gives the true account of that noun from history, and the other person then gives up a crazy made-up bullshit alternate version of noun, and at the end, we vote on which becomes the real history of this brilliant, spinning, little blue marble called Earth going forward.
Was that like the Mad Libs version of the show description?
Well, you gotta keep it fresh, and I find the best way to keep it fresh is to vague it up even more than you normally do. If you are, even if you are a lowly bronze listener, you may remember that the last episode was about Clipperton Island and the strange mini tyranny and murder that occurred there. And you'll be excited to know that we have decided the alternate version presented by Timmy Lasley, where Clipperton Island was like kind of an Overlook Hotel host of ghosts that drove this madness to occur, ultimately won out at the end of the day. So congrats to Timmy, who is probably undefeated as a guest in creating alternate histories.
I believe so.
Yeah, she made Washington 2 Kids in a Coat. I remember that one.
And she did Black Tom Island, I remember.
Yeah.
Which I think she just made that a party island.
Yeah, well.
Which, it worked. We can't argue with results. That's democracy.
Yeah, we have decided that is actually what it was. So there is no point debating this. It is a fact.
Really, I seem like the crazy one now.
But this week, we're going to be discussing the Franklin Expedition. As per my normal tradition, I have read absolutely nothing about the Franklin Expedition because I didn't have to do any of the work parts this week.
Well, Kate, you're doing the actual history.
Yep, I will enlighten you.
Hey there, this is Brian reminding you that The Revisionist is supported by listeners just like you. You can make a pledge and get rewards like shirts and even the right to vote over at patreon.com/therevisionists.
Longtime bronze listeners, so I'll be sure to leave a review after this recording.
You know what? Go ahead and put on that silver medal now. By the way, listeners, you should have gotten your medals in the mail. If not, send us a postcard at 323 Fake Street, Normaltown, USA.
Ooh.
And incidentally, we are now thousands of dollars in debt because we bought a lot of silver medals.
The thing about gold and silver is it does not devalue. That is a real kick in the ass when you're going to buy a bunch of it.
To be fair, we're only mailing out like 2 gold medals, so mostly that's just an investment. We're just going to bury the rest in our backyard for if, the apocalypse comes or whatever.
Well, anyway, yes, the Franklin expedition, also known as Franklin's Lost Expedition.
They really shouldn't have called it that. I think that was kind of a bad omen.
Yeah. Also known as a bunch
spoiler,
of
too.
people stuck in ice for all eternity.
I don't want to
No,
get.
I do think that name, when they came up with that name, they really should have been like, wait a minute, do we really want to call...
That's also where they got the idea for like the novelty ice cube trays that have like a fake fly in them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just all the dudes trapped in ice.
The horrific deaths.
So the Franklin expedition was really one of the later stage journeys to try and find a successful passageway through something called the Northwest Passage, which was basically this big shortcut, is a big shortcut from Europe over to Asia. They were trying to find successful trade routes through the Canadian Arctic by voyaging through the Canadian Arctic archipelagos to ultimately get to India and Asia and ship some stuff over there and save a bunch of money and have great trade routes, and everybody wins.
Just everybody wins except probably like the Inuit people who rarely get to win.
Yes. Very true.
But also like Arctic archipelago, that's the part that's like 80% of Canada. Part of Canada no one really thinks about also.
No.
I have discovered partway into this account of the true history, I actually do know a lot about this because I recently watched the AMC show The Terror, which was entirely about the Franklin expedition.
Yes.
I was wondering, because I was almost positive that was the show you had watched. So I was like, maybe he was drunk when he watched it.
Well, it can be two things.
Nope. Anytime someone drinks, they don't remember a thing. That's how alcohol works. I'm a 30-year-old cool adult.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen that show, but fitfully named as the two ships that Sir John Franklin took on this expedition were one named the HMS Erebus and two the HMS Terror. Hence the Terror.
Again, all ominous names. Franklin's
Yeah.
last expedition, the Terror, all sorts of shit like that.
Yeah, Erebus, it turns out, from Greek mythology, is basically just the personification of darkness. So
Jesus Christ, who names boats?
pretty cool.
They were going through like a hardcore, like dark phase when they were naming
Yeah.
these boats.
Yeah, that's
Like,
when they were like picked their MySpace name and they
yeah, it
were
was
just
like a
stuck
surly
with it.
16-year-old British Empire who's like, I'm naming it Erebus. Let me listen to
I won't
Core.
do what you tell me.
Yeah, the year is 1845. This guy, John Barrow, who's the second secretary of the admiral, he's like, hey, we gotta invest in the Navy. We gotta get our ships through the Northwest Passage. This is going to be amazing. There's only about 70,000 square feet of Arctic that's unknown and untraversed at this point in time. I need somebody to figure this shit out and get us over to Asia.
Get that sweet, sweet opium.
Yes.
We need a faster route to opium.
Unfortunately, John Franklin was not his first choice. He was actually like his sixth choice or so. Bunch of other younger guys. John Franklin was 59, so not necessarily in his prime to go on another Arctic voyage. But from what I could tell, he was also kind of a dick and just didn't really have a super successful track record in general. His first voyage through the Arctic, he lost 11 out of the 20 men he had with him.
Jesus.
And reports show that expedition ended in cannibalism. Maybe some foreshadowing of what we're going to hear today on
It's
Franklin's
only a
Lost.
loss if it's a total party wipe. Everything else is a passable victory.
Yeah, even cannibalism is like, no, you can still come back from that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, so John Barrow finally settles on John Franklin to go take this large expedition. He outfits him with these 2 ships, the Erebus and the Terror. These are super cool Arctic fortified ships, super fortified hulls. They're actually steam engines, so they're able to make some headway without the wind. Pretty cool technological advances. And the steam also gets to keep everybody warm in the winter where they know they're going to be stuck in the Arctic for at least a couple winters, have to hang out on this ship.
Also, it had like a fish tank in it because they let Exhibit work on it for a little bit, I think.
This is a pretty huge voyage. They're expecting it to take at least 3 years, so they have to prepare these ships with a shit ton of stuff. The ships actually had over 32,000 pounds of preserved meat.
So much meat.
1,000 pounds of raisins, 580
Oh, man,
gallons of pickles, and ultimately 8,000 tins of food. And the order to get these 8,000 tins stocked, the guy that actually took the order only had about 8 weeks to prepare them. So he had to move really quickly. Get a bunch of food stuffed into these cans and then ultimately solder them. And he didn't do a great job at that because there was a lot of lead soldering done that ultimately ended up dripping its way into the food that everybody was eating.
Oh, that's spicy meatball. And that spice? Lead, it turns out. Which tastes a little bit like coriander.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
You can't make a good salsa without it, I think, really. That's the secret.
What a droll reaction you have to being poisoned by your food. A spicy meatball. Arsenic.
Yeah, so, I mean, these ships are stocked, you guys. They got food, they got books, they got rum. They're ready to rock for 3 years. And they set sail from England with about 130 men. In 1845. First stop is Disco Bay in Greenland.
Which is way less cool than it sounds. I feel like I need to...
It's very cold, but I feel like you could still have a pretty good disco.
To be fair, by far the least ominous thing that has occurred. The Terror and the Erebus took that ill-fated
Go to Disco Bay.
trip
Which
to Disco
definitely
Bay.
sounds like a disco lyric. A little bit.
I mean,
Well,
disco...
there's about to be panic at the
God
Disco
fucking
Bay.
damn it.
I knew that was coming. No, Disco Bay was good times. They kind of just hung out there. They got a fuck ton of ox meat. They're like, yeah, we got more fresh meat. We're ready to go. And they make their way into the archipelagos, and they end up this really small, tiny little island called Beechy Island in 1845. And they end up wintering there from 1845 to 1846. And this is the first place where there's some indication that things have gone a little bit awry.
I do like that whoever named Beechy Island didn't want to commit to fully saying it was a beach. It was just beachy.
Beach-esque.
Beechy, I believe, was another explorer who was the first person to set foot on this tiny little 2 square mile island.
It's like, well, I guess this is what I get to name after myself.
Now, once again, I've been proven to be stupid and full of shit. So mark off that part of the podcast that we have every single week.
That's just the most indignant response to that. Sorry, go ahead.
Beechy Island, we now know because of a rescue expedition that went to find Franklin and his buddies that 3 people actually perished on Beechy Island. Mm-hmm. The first time that people lost their lives on the Franklin expedition. And this is actually pretty interesting because if you do ever Google the Lost Franklin expedition, one of the first Google images that comes up is of this perfectly preserved dead body of this guy named John Torrington. Mm-hmm. And I recommend Googling it if you like looking at that sort of thing.
Feel like looking at perfectly preserved dead bodies.
It's pretty
And
terrifying.
if you don't, go home, square.
Yeah, nerd. Google it now.
Idiots like you name things Disco Bay instead of Aramis.
Yeah.
And of course, their dinghy Avenged Sevenfold, I guess.
Yeah, John's body, very disturbing. The image of it. His mouth is like perfectly open, exposing all of his teeth. His eyes are wide open. He has severe frostbite to where his like whole forehead and nose is just completely black. It's pretty terrifying. And then you get down to the pictures that show his whole body, and his like hands are perfectly preserved with fingernails. And it's, I don't know, it's one of the sexiest things I've ever seen.
I was going to say, when you got to that whole body shot, I was not... I just pictured someone sending that to someone on Tinder. Just that picture of that mummy, which I'm pulling up right now.
Yeah, do it.
Because I need to refresh my memory.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But please, while I'm doing this, feel free to...
Yeah.
While I'm indulging my mummy fix.
So...
Set it as your wallpaper already, Brian. You Google it 20 times a day.
Yeah, so those graves are ultimately found in 1850, but, you know, due to respecting the dead, they were not exhumed at that time. They were exhumed in the 1980s, actually, by this guy named Owen Beatty, and he performed autopsies on the bodies for the first time, which indicated that they most likely died of pneumonia, possibly also tuberculosis, but they also definitely had high as fuck amounts of lead in their body, although that was probably ultimately not the cause of death, but it might have made them go a little cuckoo. Maybe they were in the ship, like freaking out, having some hallucinations from the lead poisoning, and they were like, let's go build a snowman. And
Naked,
that's...
or
This
whatever.
Frozen remake is going in a weird direction, Disney.
And that's how they ultimately got pneumonia. Anyway, aside from those three guys that die on Beachy Island, we continue to set sail again after that winter, and we head toward King William Island, which ultimately is where these Erebus and the Terror end their journeys. They get stuck in the ice there. Again, they're like, no problem. We're going to winter here. No big deal. It's going to melt next summer, and it just never melts. So they're stuck. They're stuck off of the shore of King William Island for a couple years, actually.
Where is global warming when you need it?
Mm-hmm.
Not started yet, apparently.
Not started yet.
Well, and part of the whole hypothesis behind the search for the Northwest Passage, too, is the idea that John Barrow had, among others, that there was, like, an open Arctic sea, that there was a point where it just, like, wasn't ice, and you could just sail freely to, like, the Arctic Circle, which some people even thought that, like, at the North Pole, there was just, like, a giant hole that all the water flowed into and went down into, like, through the earth to recycle at the South Pole because people were idiots.
Which, as
Sorry.
we all know, is accurate. Modern times we have discovered the pole hole.
Of course, the pole hole closed on Thanksgiving, opened back up on Black Friday at 4 p.m. for firemen and other people who use poles.
Special happy hours menu available on the website. Moving on.
Yeah, go to polehole.com.
Don't go to polehole.com. I'm just going to say don't do that right now.
Do it after you look up that dead body.
Do it. Feel free, listen through the episode, and then write a review, then
You know
go
what?
to Polehole. Get that review in before you go to polehole.com.
Here's what I want you to do. open up a tab for the dead body, open up a tab for polehole.com, and then open up a third tab and take a screenshot of whatever's on there, but forget to edit out the other 2 tabs when you share it on social media.
Awesome. Sorry. Anyway.
It's okay. We're stuck. We're stuck in that ice real good. For years. There are reports that Franklin ultimately died in 1847. And at some point, everyone decides after Franklin's death to just totally abandon ship, and they're going to make their way across the Arctic tundra to try and find some Inuit communities or some sign of civilization, because they're just totally going to die on the ship if they don't do this. By this point in time, the 129 crew is probably down to like 40 people who actually decide they're going to walk across the Arctic freeze.
That's the point when you just like abandon your Uber pool, basically. I don't know. I've never taken one. I can't speak. I have no reference point for that. I was just trying to jump on a popular comedy trope. I'm sorry.
All right. So now we've established that Brian is an idiot and completely full of shit, so we can move past that.
Mark it on the board. Welcome to Two Idiots Completely Full of Shit.
Needless to say, everybody dies. All 40 people trying to walk across the Arctic tundra, they die. Meanwhile, back in England, John Franklin's wife, Jane, Lady Franklin, she's freaking out a little bit. She's like, I haven't heard from my wife. Everyone in Europe, or from my husband. Everyone in Europe is like, of course you haven't. He's in the Arctic. It hasn't even been the 3 years yet. You need to calm down. She persists, and she's actually convinces with a sum of 20,000 euros, which today would be like 1.8 million euros, to go and try and figure out what happened to Franklin and basically do these rescue missions. So that one in 1850 that I talked about, where we find the 3 graves on Beechey Island, is the first indication that they at least made it to Beechey Island. There was some notes.
Well, we know they were here.
Some notes left that they successfully wintered there, but that's pretty much all the information we get at that point in time. In 1854, this guy, John Ray, also at the behest of Lady Franklin, he goes on another expedition to try and figure out what happened to Franklin and his friends. And he gets a little bit more clues than we previously had. He finds some relics, and he also connects with the Inuit community. He's like, hey guys, have you seen any Englishmen walking about the Arctic tundra? And the natives say, why, yes, we saw them eating each other last year.
to think finally someone thought to ask the Inuit. Just like, no, we got this. And then, anyway.
Yeah, so John Ray, he goes back to England. He tells everybody, yeah, I was talking to the natives. We got a situation out there. Everyone's dead, and they were definitely participating in cannibalism. The Inuits actually showed me some pots with clear signs that there were human body parts being boiled in here. Yeah, pretty cool.
I mean, not to discount that, but I also did picture like an Inuit being like, and this is the witch's eyes, and holding like a bowl of peeled grapes.
Everyone in England is like, no, that couldn't possibly be true. Franklin and his men would never eat each other. You're insane. Particularly our good friend Charles Dickens. He's like, give me a break. That would never happen. He gets super pissed off, and he actually writes a play about Franklin's lost expedition.
I did not know this part.
However, in this play, he turns it around, and he says that the Inuits ate the Englishmen.
Well, Dickens, you're
problematic fave 1860 whatever this is.
Dickens, you're usually way better than that. Come on, buddy.
But yeah, ultimately, not until 1859, this guy McClintock does another journey to figure out what happened. He finds a note left in some rock cairns that pretty much says, first winter, all was well, and after that second winter,
Oh,
everybody.
boy. Yeah. It just had like a drawing of someone tugging on their collar.
After that second winter, everybody abandoned ship. And it actually wasn't until 2014 that either of the ships were found. The Erebus was found sunken nearby Prince William Island, and the location is currently still undisclosed, preserved by the Canadian Historical Society, but they found it.
The chef, for some reason, just like the look in your eyes was like the Canadian Historical Society made it seem like you were equating them with like the Freemasons or something.
I also don't know if the Canadian Historical Society is a real thing, but the people who found it aren't telling anybody. And then in 2016, we ultimately find the Terror, also south of King William Island. And that's pretty much the long and short of it.
Do you think this is like the only story the Canadian Historical Society gets to tell where anything exciting happens? I feel like everything else is like, just them talking about how maple syrup was found or how
they were able to go
Seth
to the
Rogen
doctor
was
when
born.
they needed it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course, Seth Rogen. He's like their Paul Bunyan. He's 7 feet tall. Or, wait, that's not that tall. 70 feet tall. There we go.
modest Paul Bunyan.
I mean, that's very Canadian, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a large legacy around this voyage and the Lost Expedition. Margaret Atwood has written about it. Mark Twain has written about it. Our buddy Charles Dickens, obviously. Even James Taylor, upon seeing photos of the dead man, wrote a song called "The Frozen Man."
Well, that's a little on the nose, Jim. And of course, also Charles Dickens, the original Chuck D. Sorry about that.
Could I end by just reading some lyrics
Oh my God, yes,
from
please.
James Taylor's "The Frozen Man"?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll try to do it spoken word-esque. The last thing I remember is the freezing cold. Water reaching up just to swallow me whole. Ice in the rigging and howling wind. Shock to my body as we tumbled in. Mercy from God. My brothers and the others are lost at sea. I alone am returned to tell thee, hidden in ice for a century to walk the world again. Lord, have mercy on the frozen man. James Taylor.
And it goes into like a weird reggae breakdown at that point.
You guys should like outro with that song or something.
Yeah. Brian, can you like bed some like howling wind sound effects underneath that rendition of the song? Caw, caw.
Kate, thank you.
You are welcome.
Every week, Denver's own Real Nerds Podcast sees a new movie and we podcast our experience to the world.
I think sometimes we're funny.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm talking, not when you're talking, not when you're talking.
Oh,
You know, it might help if you told them that we're on iTunes or we're on Stitcher so they could find a place where they can actually listen to us.
Oh, okay, Brad. We're also on Twitter at Real Nerds, and we have an Instagram account. Boom. Commercial, Brad. Cut, paste, upload. We like to have fun.
Sure. I like fun.
James, you're very bad at improv. RealNerdsPodcast.com.
That was a good attempt at like what the mainstream media wants you to know about the Franklin expedition. But I want to talk about John and Janet Franklin for a little bit, because John and Janet Franklin were a lot of things. They were a loving couple, they were philanthropists, and they were the greatest husband and wife team of jewel thieves in Western history. They stole the crown jewels just for fun. They stole rubies as big as a can of baked beans, that
No.
standard measurement.
Have they ever stolen the pyramids? Because otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and say, ain't no Carmen Sandiego, are they?
They stole the pyramids. They stole Queen Victoria's ring right off her pinky toe. So, really just so skilled at thieving. They met while they were running with a larger crew called Terror Bus. This crew was really clicking. They were clicking, man. And but heist teams, they tend to drift apart. It's a high pressure profession, a lot of strain on relationships. There's double crosses. People go to spin-offs. Paul Walker dies. So after a while, John and Janet were the only ones left standing. And they decided it was time to retire. So they plan one last big score. They went to the British Museum and they stole the largest diamond in England, which was called the Rather Large Diamond. So dumb. Jesus Christ.
After its discoverers, John Rather and Edward Large.
Yeah. Edward Large, man, he had a very successful career in erotic novels after discovering diamonds.
Could you compare the size of the Rather Large diamond to a can of beans?
It was like a double Bush's baked beans can, so not like the single one, or even definitely not like the half one, but like the family size one. So roll that beautiful bean footage. I think that's trademarked.
Thinking about those beans, as the internet is so fond of saying.
Side note, I don't know why I bothered to say side note. This is all side note now. I have a friend who is deeply afraid of pictures of baked beans in like drinking glasses. Or like where you should baked beans in situations where baked beans should not be, which has led me to dig up.
Okay. I'm sorry. One, how was this discovered? Did somebody offer them water, but they didn't have water, so they thought, how about some beans instead?
I don't know how it originated. I don't know at all. But it is amazing because, of course, now I dig up so many pictures of baked beans in improper contexts. And
again, listeners, please don't Google beans where they shouldn't be and see what comes up, because this seems like a terrible idea. Or do, and put it in that's the third tab after pull hole in the mummy.
Beans where they shouldn't be. That would be like, if that's a porn site, you would be like their first hit in months, I feel like.
Well, if it's not, I'm going to register the domain and be a millionaire by March.
Oh, God damn it. So they stole the diamond and they sail off to Van Diemen's Land, or as it's later known, Tasmania. And they live the good life. Janet opens a cabana. John, he makes a living selling seashells with googly eyes on them. And things were great for a while. But, that paranoia sets in, You and your thief partner are just hiding out in Tasmania, you get paranoid. That's what happens. After Janet takes out a life insurance policy on John, he begins to get suspicious that she's going to make off with the Rather Large Diamond. And she was just going to grease him first. And also that life insurance policy probably would have cleared like $100 in that time. So a lot. So on the morning of May 19th, 1845, Janet heads down to John's crab shack where he paints the seashells.
Oh, I thought he had opened a restaurant.
Oh, no. That was maybe he sold some crabs out the back. The records are spotty.
Okay.
With a poisoned shrimp cocktail. She opens the door, and he's gone. There's just a bunch of seashells with googly eyes, I guess, staring back at her. She didn't know where he was, but she knew where he was going. Because they knew about the Arctic, the land of ice, which they thought meant land of diamonds.
Okay. So they're incredibly stupid, incredibly successful jewel thieves.
Yes, very high street smarts, low book smarts at this
Okay.
point. So,
Probably didn't even know about the pole hole.
that was only in legend at that point. So behind Janet's back, John had hatched a plan, reaching out to some members of Terror Bus, getting the team back together. Jonathan Crozier, the wheelman, who never felt Franklin trusted him enough. Henry D.S. Goodsir, the medic. The D.S. stands for Doctor Strange. Not like the comic book character. He just had sex with a lot of people he didn't really know. It's a really bad. Oh my god. James Fitzjames. He was the muscle. But for a mission that's crazy, they needed a wild card. So enter Patrick the Cannibal Fitzpatrick, explosives expert and cannibal.
Two skills that are integral to heists.
Franklin thought I was crazy enough to work.
Just like in Ocean's 11, you always see it. The car guy, the explosions expert, the gymnast, the cannibal. It's part of the team, baby.
Sandra Bullock made such a good cannibal in Ocean's 8, though. I think
Yeah.
people really need to give her credit for
But
that.
I just don't think they could ever replace Dahmer in the original group.
Oh, yeah. I mean, classic. It's a classic. So they told people they were looking for the Northwest Passage, which the Northwest Passage was actually just the name of Franklin's favorite brand of smokes. So that was just a ruse. And they set off with the rather large diamond tucked safely inside Franklin's sock, which was very uncomfortable.
Picturing the double wide bush beans in my sock.
Well, he told people he had goiters. That's the thing. That was way more common then. Janet Franklin, that's when she's sending out search party after search party, trying to get that diamond back, but no one could find them. One crew did find a letter from Crozier on a beachy island. It was mostly destroyed, but one line was legible, and it read, quote, I mean, he has cannibal right in the name, end quote. So over the years, Janet she came to grudgingly admire John in a way for his chutzpah. Whenever she would talk about him, sometimes she would kind of get this smirk on her face and stare off into the middle distance and just go, that son of a bitch. Which confused people a lot. But Janet wasn't out. The thing they always said about her was she had the best long con in the game. She ran numbers for a while. She ran the old pick-a-pony scheme, the old Melbourne mix-up, all sorts of scams. Mm-hmm. And so as she lays dying, she calls her daughter to her bedside, and with her last breaths produces two documents. The first, her will, says, my diamond is still trapped in that ice somewhere, and you will get it back, even if you have to melt the Arctic to do it. And in the other hand, she held blueprints for the first internal combustion engine. And that's the alternate history of the Franklin expedition.
It's the cause of global warming. We wouldn't have had it if not. Otherwise, we would have never gotten here.
Of course. It all comes back to one particular person we can blame for our problems instead of ourselves. Isn't that convenient, sheeple?
Multi-billion-dollar industries only exist to collect a singular diamond.
Is that out of the realm of believability, though, I ask?
I like it. I liked the Faulkner reference in the ending.
Yeah, that was totally... I only realized it as I was saying it.
We're very literary today. We've got Dickens, we've got Faulkner, we've got Atwood.
Yeah, and only one of those is really readable now.
Yeah, John.
Shout out Marg.
James Taylor.
Old Maggie Axe. That's her rap name. Sorry.
And it's the at symbol. It's not, yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. She's on tour with Ty Dolla $ign right now.
Have you read The Handmaid's Tale?
And then she just reads Handmaid's Tale over a beat for the next 12 hours. It's a book on tape, is what it is, really.
I prefer edible woman.
Was she insulting her own book at that point? Check out my
Just trying
SoundCloud.
to get the word out about some of her lesser known works.
Check out Angel Catbird dropping, of course, on Spotify. Which is weird because it's a graphic novel. It wouldn't anyway. This is now a Margaret Atwood podcast, so it's called Leprechaun in the Wood. So, God damn it. So, listeners, just real quick, I want to remind everyone that we're a proud member of the Denver Podcast Network, which I'm not sure is a proud provider of us, of our show. Other shows on the network include the Denver Pizza Podcast, which is on a sacred quest to try every single pizza in Denver, which I've been on, and I hope I get to be back on with better pizza.
What pizza you get? You get that Little C's? You get that Papa J's?
No, I think it was mostly not. It was a place called Ian's, which was...
Wow, shots fired, Ian.
Yeah.
Brian does not like your za.
Straight C-level pizza, like very middle of the road. Wouldn't kick it out of bed, but wouldn't invite it into bed. Don't know what any of this means.
So yeah, basically in the situation, if Ian's Pizza, you came home and like that one scene in The Godfather, there was just a piece of Ian's Pizza lying in your bed, you would not remove it. You would lay atop it and get your sleep.
That is actually really close to what I mean, I think. Because if like someone is providing that pizza for me, yes, in a Godfather-like scenario, then yeah, I would eat that pizza. I would not pay money for that pizza. Anyway, for more on that, check out the Ian's
Check out
Pizza
Brian's
episode.
Yelp page for more weird, confused reviews where he doesn't know what metaphor he wants to go
Yeah,
with.
it's called convolutedreviews.com. Also, you can ask us a question or leave us a comment via our website, revisionistpodcast.com, or Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on all of those. So come interact with us, which is spoken like someone who does not value human interaction. Kate, you're going to be on an awesome show, Power Move, coming up December 6th.
That's correct.
That's a Thursday night at Image Brew, which is hosted by Nathan Lund and Aaron Urist. Nathan Lund, former guest on the show. Aaron Urist, just a good guy. But Kate is very, very funny. So whenever you get a chance, please check her out.
Yeah, please come, everybody. It's an awesome show. It's a really cool venue called Image Brew. It'll be a good time. Come support local comedy.
As for me, I December 6th also, I co-host Queen City Companion, an all-fall storytelling show at Muni Information Cafe with friend of the show, Jen Colick. It's a really fun time. Come check that out at 8 o'clock. And my show, Know Your Shit, is going to be having its last show at Comedy Room Room. One of the last shows before the venue closes. That'll be December 16th. Come out to that. It's going to be a bonkers lineup. And hopefully by then we'll have a new home to announce for that. But Zach, I believe you are judging this episode.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about the options, and I think it's kind of a difficult choice this time, I feel like, but there are two factors that pushed me in a certain direction. One, I like that AMC show, The Terror, a lot, so I kind of want that to still exist, and if I vote for the other one, it stops existing. And B, that beautiful spoken word Frozen Man iteration just put the performance points that put it over the top. So I think this time I'm going to go with the real history, but that's not the end of the game because it's still up to you, the listening audience, to vote on which you prefer.
And that voting is now open as you're hearing this. So go ahead, and now that the important voting is over, vote in something far less consequential.
Yeah, just practice until the next time.
Yeah, of course. Consider voting for this show. Practice for the 2020 primaries and general
So
elections.
every poll that we do for this show, we're going to have 3 options: the real, the alternate, and Trump. And you just don't pick Trump. Like, that's just the practice you're going to get. Never pick
That's
the Trump
the thing.
option.
That's
And you'll be, good for 2020.
and really, once you get that training under your belt, there'll be no stopping you. But Kate, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. So much fun.
Yeah, that was a fun time. Zach, thank you as always.
Of course.
Thank you, Zach, for picking me the rightful winner.
Okay, we don't need to make me feel bad.
I mean, that is part of, if you look at the list of things we do on this podcast that we've been scratching off, make Brian feel bad is right there.
And it's usually me who's the one checking that one off. So
Yeah, well, we're glad to help you pick up the slack this time.
it's good because I have been slacking and I don't deserve love. Now, for everyone here at The Revisionists, I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
Have a good time.